Max Stirner's philosophy might have been dismissed by a lot of people who aren't anarchist thinkers or 15-year-olds who are euphoric and enlightened by their own intelligence. But it is very relevant in the arts, specifically in the modern age, post-1990s, where projects and releases seem to be increasingly less unique and more echoes of the future, more hauntological, more spooked. This video is going to be discussing music genres, their formation, their relationship to Stirner's concept of the spook, and how to best focus on making your art uniquely you. Cooler than John Galt. Max Stirner, born Johann Caspar Schmidt in 1806 in Germany, was a post-Hegelian philosopher, most known for his book The Ego on Its Own, or, if you want to be pedantic, The Unique and Its Properties, and the concept of the spook, which I will discuss a bit later. He is widely regarded as one of the forerunners of nihilism, existentialism, psychoanalytic theory, postmodernism, individualist anarchism, and egoism. I would personally argue that all of modern philosophy is actually just a footnote to Stirner. Everything. I'm not kidding. Shit like this? Stirner in a different hat. He was notably part of the young Hegelians, with some of his contemporaries like Bruno Bauer, Ludwig Feuerbach, Karl Marx, and Friedrich Engels, which is just a legendary circle jerk. And he died of an infected bug bite in 1856. Stirner and the arts go back further than Stirner and egoism do. In his 1842 essay, Art and Religion, he discusses how art can turn into religion and the artist can turn into the priest of said religion. This is significantly dumbed down. There's a lot to it. I'll link the essay in the description. I think it's really worth a read. I'll be specifically focusing on the elements of art and religion that relate to the arts. Stirner defines art as such. In art, the world of the artist is set before one's eyes as an object, a world which the artist has brought forth and concentrated from the full power and richness of his own inwardness. A world which it will satisfy every real need and longing. To really dumb this down, your art is you. It is just an outward projection of your own inwardness, like your true, spookless self. I personally would go further and add to this for my own blend of egoism, because Stirner's egoism is really just a baseline for other people to pick and choose and pick apart and modify for themselves. Because if you follow Stirner's egoism strictly, it's a spook, because you're putting someone else's ideals and stuff ahead of your own uniqueness. Anyways, I would go further and add to this based on my own personal philosophy. Your purpose in making art, you as the artist, art also as how Stirner described it, should not be to be rewarded with forms of abstractions like spooks or hedonistic pleasures, money, fame, material goods, and products of lust. Your goal in making art should only and always be to achieve immortality for your uniqueness. Something that I believe this is the final goal of the artist, and I'm going to get into this in more depth in the future when I really start talking about what I think is going on with the internet, and I bring up what I'm calling cyber egoism. The spook or the specter is the key takeaway from Stirner's philosophy, and is usually the extent of people's knowledge when it comes to Stirner. This is usually the first thing you find out, besides, "Oh, things are nothing to me," when you see a TikTok edit or an Instagram reel. I don't really think it's misunderstood to the same extent of egoism as a whole, which I'm not going to cover here because it's not particularly relevant, but I'll get to it in the future. But there's still some misconceptions. I will clear up some of these after I explain the spook. The spook is simply an abstraction, something that is completely intangible, but it still has power in our day-to-day lives in a way that influences your choices and making them not entirely your own. Some things that are spooks are countries, laws, religion, money, and social norms. You can see why the edgy 15-year-olds like Stirner. These are the most commonly and easily spotted spooks, but they're also the hardest to bust, as they affect pretty much everyone alive. There are smaller spooks that are unique to the individual, and these are things like your job title, your favorite sports team, your academic degree, and your social media following count. Things that you will put above yourself, more important than you and your uniqueness. People tend to view the spook as something they must reject completely, just get it gone. Ignore it. Never take anything from it. This is incorrect. The spook simply must not be placed higher than one's uniqueness. I myself am not a Canadian. My value is not determined by my labor, my degree, or my follower count, but by my uniqueness. You should take from the spook only what benefits you and your uniqueness, and never allow it to be greater than yourself. This becomes extremely relevant when you're talking about musical genres, which are entirely controlled and constrained by stylistic and cultural choices. Music genres are made up primarily of three things. They're made up of cultural choices, compositional choices, and stylistic choices. Firstly, I'm going to briefly cover cultural, because I intend to go into it in significantly more depth in the future, because there's a lot to unpack when it comes to cultural choices in both the original community and in genre. All you really need to know is that there are two types of cultures in genre. You have the original community, which would be something like 90s black metal in Norway, people like Varg Vikernes and Euronymous and Dead. Those are your original community, the creators of unique stylistic choices. And then you have later, whether it be corrupted by just the genre becoming very normalized or ungate-kept in a way, so normies can get in, or by capitalist incentives, which is what you can see with grunge. Like Kurt Cobain was very aware that his original community was going to be taken and marketed. And this becomes the curated community. And the curated community is the community of genre. I have it in the bottom corner behind my head. It's the one that's under the commodified culture. That's the curated community. And the curated community enforces genre. Next, you have your compositional choices. Composition is really made up primarily of two things. It's song structure and harmonic theory. There are others like melody, tempo, time signature, but your strong song structure and harmonic theory are really the most important and fundamental things to the song and the story that you're trying to tell. In pop music, this is more of a dumbed down rondo structure where you keep coming back to a main theme or a chorus. And harmonic theory is really just what people say when they think of music theory. Your diatonic chords, things like that, going to more advanced stuff. People do see these sometimes as spooks. You'll probably hear this a lot in one way or another by noise musicians or something like that, saying these theory things are constraining my artistic ideas. This is wrong. This is incorrect. Theory and compositional aspects in music is a language, just as much as English, Russian, German, or Italian is. It is a way of communicating understandably with other musicians. It is extremely important. It's like you'll see videos of people teaching guitar, and they'll be like, you play these chords, you'll play on your A string, your D string, and it'll tell you what frets to play. It's like, just tell me a D minor chord. Learn your theory. And you can communicate these things so much better. I wonder how many band disputes have started because the individuals don't understand theory and cannot communicate with each other properly, and they just get confused. I think that you could take a very Wittgensteinian approach to this and get quite far, which is something that I intend on doing in the future. Because I do seriously think people need to learn theory, because theory is going the way of the dodo. And if you do not know theory, you are just going to be sat in a cycle where you... I'll get into this in the future. It really bugs me. I can't put it into words off the top of my head. Next, we have stylistic choices. These stylistic choices are what primarily makes a genre a genre. They are like instruments. How are these instruments arranged? How is the mix done? How are the drums played? What are the drums? Are they electronic? Are they acoustic? How clean is the production? Stylistic choices can be spooks because some people feel the need to confine themselves within them in order to fit into certain genres, for the sake of making money, placing more importance on fitting in with the stylistic norms of the genre over their intent behind making their art, over the projection of their uniqueness in said art. Now, genre in itself is entirely a spook. Every aspect of it, for the most part. Like when you take your stylistic choices, you take your compositional choices, and you take your curated community that comes with genre, you are met with a certain list of criteria that you need to meet in order to become part of this genre. So in order to be in a genre, you are limiting yourself artistically. And when you place these genre norms above yourself, you're placing genre norms above yourself, and it becomes really the definition of a spook. What you really need to do in genre is you need to look at the elements of it, the stylistic choices, the compositional choices, and the curated community. You need to look for what elements benefit you. So stylistically, let's say I want to mix acid trance and black metal. One, you're going to be completely alienating both of the curated communities because you're venturing outside of the genre norms. That's just done from the get-go. The moment you venture outside of the genre norms, you alienate their community, which isn't a bad thing because the community doesn't look at you as beneficial to it. It looks at you as beneficial to it as you are when you are constrained by the community. Their sophistic uniqueness is benefiting from your sophistic uniqueness. But so back to the example. If I'm taking acid trance and black metal and blending the two, what are stylistic elements that I'm going to take? Compositional elements don't really matter here because it really only matters in the story you're trying to tell through the song. But stylistic choices, you're going to want things like blast beats from black metal and the distorted guitars. From trance or acid trance, you're going to need things like a real squelchy 303 bass line, possibly like electronic drums, a 909 or an 808, things like that. You're going to need to want to mix these together, that really create a way for you to tell a unique story using those unique blends of sounds. And because you're picking and choosing the elements of these genres, you're really letting your actual uniqueness out and how you truly can use the aspects of these spooks into presenting yourself in an artistic way, given what story you're trying to tell, which is really the main point of all of this. You should never see genre as genre. It's really just a marketing label that people are now placing above themselves. You need to take the stylistic choices and take the ones you want, like I stated before, like what from acid synth you want and what from black metal you want. And that's how you can create a new original community, which eventually, if it has marketability, will be commodified and sold back to people. You can see this happening now in genres like dungeon synth and black metal recently, specifically after Lords of Chaos, where you have people dressing up in the corpse paint and whatnot. Max Stirner's idea of the spook is very relevant to modern music because people are placing the genre above themselves, and we are no longer seeing the unique identities of the artist that we would in the past. We're now seeing people stuck fitting into norms in order to put bread on the table. And this isn't a good thing, obviously, because it will allow for the arts to get to a point where they have stagnated, where they can be created by artificial intelligence or just be made by anyone, made by people in a room, a gathering of individuals in a room, so they can write songs and sell them off to the highest bidder, which is being seen in pop music. People need to understand that they can still fight back against this by truly expressing their uniqueness, especially in the internet age, where it's easier than ever to project yourself into the feeds of millions and millions and millions of people. All of these record labels are dead. People need to realize that. And once people do realize that and start acting on their uniqueness of their art and their individual, this structure will collapse. And I'm going to get into this later because I have kind of like a theory of how this will look. It'll be very feudalist in a way. It'll look similar to the Toho community, actually. But that is what will happen in the future. And that is what we need to happen, and that is what we need to go for as quickly as possible so we can get out of just this box, musically and artistically, that capitalism and the commodification of these cultures and these genres and the stylistic choices have put them in. And that is really where I think the meat and potato of Stirner in modern music really is. And I think if you're going to take away anything from this, it is to learn everything you can about the stylistic choices of genres. Learn how to compose for every instrument you can. Learn what makes these genres unique so you can call upon its essence when you need it, but not be confined to it. Thank you for watching. I hope you found this understandable. I hope my off-script yaps made sense. I've got a Patreon. If you'd like to give me $1, I would greatly appreciate that. And I'll see you next time when I yap on end about something else. Who knows?